the post-war sky, and a nation's imagination. The mid-1940s marked a transformative period in American history, characterized by the conclusion of World War II and the nascent stages of the Cold War. This era fostered a unique blend of technological optimism, national anxiety, and a burgeoning interest in the unknown, creating fertile ground for phenomena like the flying saucer phenomenon. The development of advanced technologies, including jet airplanes and rockets, alongside the chilling reality of nuclear weapons, primed the public to consider both the marvels and potential threats from the sky. This post war landscape, coupled with a growing fascination with science fiction, set the stage for the dramatic events of June and July 1947. The profound changes following World War II contributed to a psychological environment uniquely susceptible to the emergence of the flying saucer phenomenon. The rapid advancements in aviation and rocketry, which made previously unimaginable aerial phenomenon seem plausible. Allied pilots had already reported Foo Fighters during the war, mysterious luminous objects accompanying their aircraft. This pre-existing, albeit minor, interest in unexplained aerial phenomenon provided a foundation. The rapid technological progress during the war, including the atomic bomb, demonstrated that nearly anything was possible, fostering a public imagination open to extraordinary explanations. The sky, in this context, became a tinderbox of mystery and hope and fear, where anxieties about the future and the capabilities of new technologies converged. Concurrently, the nascent Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union introduced a new layer of national security concerns. Any unexplained aerial objects could be perceived as potential foreign threats, particularly Soviet secret weapons, creating an environment of suspicion and vigilance. This underlying tension significantly influenced official responses and public interpretation of sightings. The scientific and technological leaps of the war era further blurred the lines between science fiction and emerging scientific fact. The concept of flying saucers or similar space vehicles was already present in the national psyche from earlier science fiction, evidenced by a flying saucer on a 1929 Science Wonder Stories cover. This pre-existing cultural familiarity made the public more receptive to the flying saucer narrative that would soon unfold, demonstrating how media had already laid conceptual groundwork for the public's acceptance of such extraordinary claims. Kenneth Arnold's sighting, June 24th, 1947. The modern era of unidentified flying objects, UFO sightings, and indeed the very term flying saucer can be directly traced to civilian pilot Kenneth Arnold experience on June 24th, 1947. His credible account, amplified by an eager press, served as the catalyst for a nationwide phenomenon, establishing the foundations for the ensuing widespread interest. On June 24th, 1947, while flying his private plane near Mount Rainier, Washington, Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 bright blue-white objects flying in a V formation. He estimated their speed at an astounding 1,700 miles per hour, far exceeding any known aircraft at the time. His story was bolstered by a prospector on Mount Adams who independently saw the objects around the same time, lending additional weight to Arnold's report. Arnold initially believed the objects might be experimental military aircraft, a theory the military later denied. Arnold's background as an experienced and respected pilot further lent significant credibility to his report, which was crucial for its widespread acceptance. Reporters interviewing Arnold noted his careful observations and lack of sensationalism, which helped overcome initial skepticism. This perceived reliability from initial witnesses was a critical factor in encouraging others to come forward with their own observations. effectively breaking the ice. For a wave of subsequent reports, the iconic term flying saucer emerged from Kenneth Arnold's description of the object's motion as a saucer if you skip it across the water. While Arnold later clarified that the objects were shaped more like boomerangs or bat wings, and his drawing supported this, newspaper reporters, such as those from the East Oregonian and the Chicago Sun, quickly adopted the term flying saucer to describe the objects themselves. This visually evocative phrase rapidly became ingrained in public understanding and influenced subsequent reports, creating a widely recognized archetype for these aerial phenomena. Arnold's story was rapidly picked up by major wire services like the Associated Press and the United Press, spreading nationwide by June 26th. Radio interviews further amplified the story, noting its rapid dissemination across every newscast over the air and in every newspaper. This immediate and widespread media attention was crucial in transforming a local sighting into a national phenomenon. The rapid dissemination of Arnold's account, bolstered by his perceived credibility, served as a powerful catalyst. It legitimized the idea of unexplained aerial phenomenon for a public already culturally primed by science fiction and post-war anxieties, setting the stage for a widespread phenomenon that followed. The escalation of sightings, late June, early July 1947. Following Arnold's highly publicized sighting, the United States experienced a dramatic surge in reporting flying disc observations, transforming an isolated event into a national widespread phenomenon. The surge rapidly intensified, reaching its peak around the 4th of July weekend, fueled by widespread media coverage and a public eager to see the mysterious objects. After news of Arnold's sightings hit the media, similar sightings began to be reported in increasing numbers across the United States. Historians later chronicled at least 800 additional reports in subsequent weeks, with some sources estimating the numbers in thousands. These reports quickly spread nationwide, demonstrating a rapid proliferation of the phenomenon. This proliferation illustrates a clear feedback loop. Arnold's initial credible report was widely publicized, which then led to a significant increase in similar reports. This in turn generated more media coverage, further amplifying the phenomenon. This sociological dynamic where Arnold had broken the ice and induced trained observers to tell stories they had hesitated to relate before indicates that the media's legitimization of the initial sighting encouraged a broader public to come forward. The reports increased sharply, with a sharp rise on July 4th, and over the next 5 days, there was widespread reports throughout the entirety of the United States. And just as sort of a caveat on this, it immediately makes me think of the New Jersey drone incident, where there was a couple initial reports, and then it sort of just exploded. Everyone was filming it. There was documentation everywhere. Everybody was talking about it. It was the number one thing, and then it sort of disappeared. That is the exact same phenomenon that happened in the summer of 1947, but it was UFOs. It wasn't drones. Everybody was seeing flying saucers, and this was not Jersey. This was the entire country. Over the next 5 days, there were widespread reports throughout the United States. Cresting on July 7th, the phenomenon was so pervasive that a Gallup poll in the summer of 47 found public awareness of flying saucers was higher than any other subject the poll had ever addressed. It's quite a bit because Gallup poll has been going for a long time. Examples of widespread reports include Oregon, Missouri, Oklahoma. Those are all June 26th. Washington, Oregon, Texas, British Columbia, Arizona, June 29th, and numerous other states. The peak of the sightings is just before the Roswell incident. Indicates a public already highly attuned and primed for such events. Also, we're just now finding out that there was a shit ton or a bunch of nuclear tests happening at this time, and they were testing some like directed energy weapons, a bunch of stuff that we now know that there's things associated with nukes and UFOs, and it seems like they were just blowing a bunch of shit up out there in the Nevada desert. The widespread reporting of aerial phenomenon continued, with various accounts emerging. For instance, the Maury Island mystery, reported on and after June 26, 47, involved Harold Dahl and Fred Chrisman claiming to have observed an explosion of a giant donut-shaped flying saucer on June 21st, with debris impacting their boat, killing a dog and injuring a son. This account, despite later scrutiny regarding the nature of the debris, continued to the ongoing public discourse and fueled discussions of unexplained aerial events and potential government involvement. The flying saucer archetype, established by media coverage, became a prominent visual for subsequent reported sightings, illustrating how our cultural narrative can influence public perception of aerial phenomena. The media as an amplifier. The media, particularly newspapers and wire services, played an indispensable role in transforming isolated sightings into a national widespread interest. Their rapid dissemination, sensational headlines, and varied interpretation acted as a powerful amplifier, shaping public perception and driving the narrative. National magazines further solidified the phenomenon's place in public consciousness. The Associated Press and United Press were instrumental in quickly spreading Arnold's story and subsequent reports across the nation. A radio host on June 26 noted how rapidly the story was shared, appearing on every newscast, over the air, and every newspaper. This immediate and pervasive coverage ensured that the phenomenon was not confined to a single region, but became a topic of national conversation, creating a sense of ubiquity for the flying saucers. This rapid and widespread adoption of the flying saucers term, despite its distinct origin in Arnold's description of motion rather than shape in the immediate national attention, suggests a commercial incentive for media outlets. Catchy headlines and mysterious stories undoubtedly sold newspapers and magazines, capitalizing on public fascination and curiosity. Headline writers quickly coined flying saucer and flying disc, terms that became synonymous with the mystery. The Chicago Sun ran the headline "Supersonic Flying Saucers Sighted by Idaho Pilot." The Albuquerque Journal on June 27, 47 used "Flying Saucer Mystery Deepens as Eyewitness Descriptions Increase." This language, often emphasizing speed, mystery, and the unknown, contributed significantly to the sensational nature of the reports and captured public imagination. The media's function was not merely to inform, but also to instigate and shape the narrative. The emergence of the flying saucer term and the use of sensational headlines demonstrated how the media didn't just report on widespread interest, it actively generated and fueled it. Beyond daily newspapers, national magazines also engaged with the phenomenon, lending it further legitimacy and contributing to public discourse. Life magazine, as part of a CIA document review, is noted for its coverage of UFO reports with a particular focus on the flying saucers term originating from Arnold sightings. Time magazine covered the Somethings on July 14th, 1947. Also noted how U.S. newspapers and magazines credulously or jokingly printed hundreds of other stories about flying saucers, highlighting a varied tone of coverage. A later Time article referenced the U.S. saucer era, beginning with Arnold's account in 47, indicating the last impact of the initial wave. Popular Mechanics was also involved with a later article titled "How to Build a Flying Saucer," suggesting a popular interest in the technical aspects or even replication of the phenomenon. The May 1947 issue of Mechanics Illustrated had already profiled the Flying Flapjack, an experimental Navy fighter, which some speculated might be the discs, showing how existing technological narratives could be co opted. The media's role was preeminent in the dramatic entry of UFOs onto the modern scene. They didn't just report facts, they wrote and delivered the key lines that defined the phenomenon and actively constructed the public's understanding and perception of the flying saucer. This process created a powerful feedback loop where media coverage created public interest, which in turn created even more sightings and further media coverage. Roswell, the phenomenon's apex, July 8th, 1947. The Roswell incident, though initially a feeding news item, stands as a symbolic apex of the 1947 flying saucer widespread interest. Its immediate dramatic announcement and subsequent retraction by the military encapsulated the era's confusion, media frenzy, and the nascent seeds of discussions about government transparency, solidifying its place in UFO lore. On July 8th, 1947, the Roswell Daily Record published a front page story announcing the Roswell Army Airfield, RAAF, had captured a flying saucer from a ranch near Roswell, New Mexico. The press release was officially issued by RAAF Public Information Officer Walter Haught. This announcement, stating the military's possession of a flying disc, made international headlines, seemingly confirming what many had been speculating. This initial high-profile announcement was a major news event, seemingly validating the widespread reports and public curiosity that had been building since Arnold's sighting. Within a day, the military swiftly retracted its statement, correcting the report to state that the crash object was merely a experimental weather balloon. The Roswell Morning Dispatch noted this new claim in a July 9th story. Though the rancher, W. Mack Brazil, who discovered the debris, reportedly did not believe it was from a weather balloon. The debris was later identified as part of Project Mogul, a top-secret balloon program designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests, providing a plausible reason for the initial secrecy and subsequent cover-up. This rapid and less convincing retraction created an environment ripe for long-term public distrust. The fact that the debris was actually from a top-secret military project meant the government was being secretive, even if not about aliens. This inherent secrecy, combined with the sudden change in its story, laid the foundation for the government cover-up discussion that became synonymous with Roswell. The two incidents, Arnold's sighting and the Roswell announcement/retraction, sparked a phenomenon that lasted decades. While the Roswell incident was mostly forgotten until the late 70s, its immediate impact was significant. The initial announcement, followed by the quick reversal, created a sense of official obfuscation and fueled public doubt. The secrecy around the debris recovery was indeed due to Cold War military programs, not aliens supposedly. But this inherent secrecy, combined with the sudden change of the story, fostered suspicion that the government was hiding something. This laid crucial groundwork for future discussions about government transparency. The Roswell report later offered explanations for the alien bodies as anthropomorphic test dummies. But for ufologists, these explanations were seen as part of a continued cover-up. This demonstrates how officials' attempt to control the narrative can inadvertently solidify alternate explanations. The media, by reporting both the initial claim and the retraction, inadvertently created the very ambiguity that allowed the discussion to fester and grow over decades, ensuring Roswell's enduring place in UFO lore. The summer of 1947, ignited by Kenneth Arnold's sighting and culminating in the Roswell incident, fundamentally reshaped public perception of unexplained aerial phenomenon. It was a crucial It was a crucible where post war anxieties, technological marvels, and the powerful influence of mass media converged to create a unique cultural phenomenon with a lasting legacy that continues to resonate in contemporary society and ufology. The flying saucer phenomenon of 1947 was not a singular event, but a complex interplay of factors. The rapid advancement of aviation and the advent of the atomic age created a public reception to extraordinary aerial events, blurring the lines between science fiction and reality. The underlying fear of Soviet secret weapons and the imperative for national security heavily influenced the official responses and public speculation, framing the unknown as a potential threat. Newspapers and magazines, through their rapid dissemination and sensational headlines and even distinct origins of terms, e.g., the flying saucer term, played a critical role in fueling and shaping the phenomenon, effectively acting as both reporters and narrative constructors. Finally, the phenomenon was also understood by contemporary observers as modern folklore, demonstrating the powerful influence of collective interest and the human need to understand the inexplicable. The 1947 phenomenon established ufology as an entire new subculture dedicated to the study of UFOs. It led to formal government investigations into UFOs, starting with Project Sign in 48, followed by Project Grudge, Blue Book. These projects compiled thousands of reports, inadvertently maintaining official engagement with the public. The Air Force terminated Project Grudge, fearing that evidence of the military's interest in UFOs helped fuel the public interest. This presents a paradox. The more the government officially addressed the phenomenon, the more it inadvertently legitimized it and fueled public interest, leading to a phenomenon that lasted decades. The very act of investigating reinforced the idea of something was there, leading to persistent nagging question about why the U.S. Air Force couldn't explain what citizens were seeing. The Roswell incident, despite official explanations, became the most famous, most exhaustively investigated UFO claim and remains the cornerstone of UFO discussions, symbolizing government transparency issues for many. The flying saucer became an enduring icon in popular culture, influencing science fiction films and public imagination for decades. Even today, in the 1947 events are seen as the birth of modern myth, demonstrating the profound and lasting cultural imprint of this brief but intense period. The events of 47 established a blueprint of how future unexplained phenomena would be perceived and discussed. The pattern of a credible initial sighting followed by widespread media amplification, additional reports, diverse public explanations, official investigations, and the emergence of discussions about government transparency became a recurring motif in the history of unexplained aerial phenomenon. The Men in Black myth is a direct legacy of the Maui Island incident, demonstrating how specific elements of the 1947 phenomenon contributed to broader cultural tropes. This suggests that the 1947 phenomenon was not just a historical event, but a foundational moment in the development of modern American popular culture's engagement with the unexplained. All right, boys and girls, that's everything can be proven and with the official story and all that is. But what do I actually think was going on in 47? So I think Roswell actually happened. I think it was an actual crash. I believe, right nearby is where we had our almost the entire stockpile of nuclear weapons. It's where we were testing nuclear weapons. The story of what I believe was going on is they were blowing up any and everything they could get their hands on just to see what it would look like blown up with nuclear bombs in the years leading up to that. It seems like those nuclear bombs send out a message that our nearby neighbors came to check out. I believe that whether they were manned or not, I'm not sure, but these were some sort of alien craft that came. The story that I am most familiar with is that we hit it with some sort of like Tesla beam weapon, some sort of directed energy weapon. The Atomic Energy Commission and the military were pissed off that these UFOs, or Foo Fighters as they were calling them, were interceding inside of the airspace and being near these nuclear bombs. So they hit them with this experimental weapon and took it down. Um, I think because of all the tests that were going on, there was a bunch of them coming here. So I don't think that this was a single incident that exploded, another incident, yada, yada, yada. There are reports on newspapers across the entire country. And I would recommend that a lot of you just go check out your local library. Look at the end of June, beginning of July of 47. You're going to see local reportings in your newspaper of people seeing these things. It quickly became the number one story in the entire country. It was being reported everywhere. Pilots were reporting it, scientists were interacting with the topic. This was not a fringe couple people. This was the New Jersey drones in 47. It's the best correlate we have. Lots of people were seeing it. There are photographs. There are lots of photographs in the papers from 47. I have copies of them here. Look, there's a picture of a photograph right there of a UFO from 47, all next to a picture of a UFO from 1600s. Like, they were in the papers. And to say that they weren't, it's just a modern interpretation of that time. So I recommend you look at firsthand sources, because this was the biggest story. It was, and its impact is clear.